Ganz herzlich willkommen heute beim e-commerce.de Podcast. In dieser Folge sprechen wir mal auf Englisch und zwar Tim und ich machen den Smalltalk gleich natürlich noch auf Deutsch, aber es geht um das Thema Compliance und wie du sicherstellst, dass deine Produkte in Europa verkauft werden dürfen und ich habe da einen super spannenden Gast für mit eingeleitet, dementsprechend dranbleiben und viel Spaß bei der Folge. So, wir sind wieder zusammengekommen, um zu sprechen. Was machen wir gerade so?
Ich würde sagen,
was passiert gerade
in
bei uns
erster
so?
Linie Eventvorbereitung. Ende Juli, Sellercon, steht an, Frankfurt.
Und was machen wir bei uns im E-Com?
E-Commerce sind wir tatsächlich, die Folge war ja auch schon draußen auf YouTube zu sehen, auf der Messe, wo wir gerade im Sourcing sind. Sehr viele neue Produkte, sehr viele geile Projekte, die wir jetzt gerade umzusetzen haben. Bedeutet,
eine Herstellerliste
Expansion, ne? Mit den Herstellern verhandeln. Die Chinesen, sehr geile Geschäftsbeziehungen tatsächlich. Das erste Mal, dass wir einen Hersteller auch vor Ort getroffen haben und eingeladen wurden.
Bevor wir auch jemals vorher schon mit denen Kontakt hatten. Also der erste Kontakt gegenüber einem Personal-Dings und wir haben jetzt Bilder mit den Herstellern.
Ich habe ein Bild bekommen, ne? Als ich dann wieder mit ihr geschrieben hatte, hat sie mir ein Bild geschickt, wo jemand anderes uns fotografiert hatte. So, wo dann du warst, dann waren wir beide so gelabelt mit unseren Namen.
Sehr geil.
Aber er hat gesagt, er holt uns sogar ab, ne? Wenn wir mal irgendwann dahin fliegen nach China, vom Flughafen abgeholt.
Das müssen wir gucken, dieses Jahr vielleicht im Oktober. Auch Kettenfest, glaube ich auch wieder, könnte man mal überlegen. Aber die waren in, ich weiß gar nicht, Xiamen oder Shanghai, ne?
Die sind in Shenzhen.
Ja, aber Flughafen oder Dings?
Shanghai hat er gesagt, können wir
Shanghai liegt halt in Anführungsstrichen am Arsch, so verhältnismäßig zu. Ich würde da gerne mal nach Hongkong, da ist ja auch Guangzhou dann direkt. In Guangzhou ist die Messe.
Gibt es da sowas wie Winter, Sommer oder?
Nee, das muss ja relativ tropisch da unten sein, ne?
Ich weiß es gar nicht.
Ich glaube, das ist auch ein riesiges Land.
Asien,
ist auf jeden Fall Hongkong ist eher so ein bisschen tropisch. Also wird wahrscheinlich Regenzeit und Sommerzeit geben. Ich gehe davon aus. Weiß ich aber nicht ganz sicher. Aber Hongkong will ich sowieso mal hin. Also Hongkong, Guangzau will ich unbedingt. Und
sehr modern
Shanghai
alles dort.
Ist halt, glaube ich, echt weit entfernt von da nochmal.
Ja, er war doch in Frankfurt, der Hersteller selber gemeint, hey, das ist für ihn ein Witz.
Er meinte, das ist so richtig witzig, weil wir haben so mit ihm gesprochen, haben so gefragt, wie findet er Deutschland so? Und normalerweise tatsächlich, Asiaten feiern immer Deutschland, weil so alles so ruhig und so entspannt und sowas. Und jetzt meinte er auf jeden Fall, das ist alles so klein hier. Das ist schon krass. Ja, willkommen in der dritten Welt.
Irgendwann sehen wir uns auf jeden Fall hier in China. Wir nehmen euch natürlich mit.
Ich habe mit irgendjemandem gesprochen, ich weiß gerade gar nicht mehr, mit wem das war, der in China gelebt hat. Ach, das passiert jetzt sogar gleich in der Podcast-Folge. Also es war sogar mit Raoul, also wir haben das schon vorher aufgenommen. Und da meinte er auch, er hat auch 8 Jahre jetzt in China gelebt und jetzt lebt er in London. Und ich liebe ja London dafür, dass es so busy ist. Ne? Und er meinte, es ist halt voll entspannt da. Es ist halt überhaupt nicht hektisch, es ist alles in tiefenentspannt, es ist alles so langsam. Als ich das gehört habe, habe ich überlegt, ich muss vielleicht dann doch irgendwann nach China auswandern, weil ich liebe das, dieses Ellenbogen an Ellenbogen, so New York oder sowas auch. Alle sind im Stress, alles ist so busy. So wenn du so merkst, dass alles passiert, du musst irgendwo wirklich warten, so alles läuft, das ist schon interessant.
New York steht ja bei dir auch noch auf der Liste, ne? Ist ja letztes Jahr leider
ins Wasser gefallen,
wortwörtlich. Ja.
Ansonsten bei uns, was ist noch so jetzt gerade? Sommer läuft ja eigentlich ganz gut bei uns, ist ja eher Saison.
Wir sind gerade auf jeden Fall dabei, du trägst den Pulli, neues Merch für Logistik auch, ne? Ja. Dass wir das ganze Thema gerade vorantreiben und dann natürlich Expansion, Marken.
Wir haben auch Merch für unsere Brands bestellt für einen Videodreh Ende des Jahres, weiß gar nicht, oder ist es auch im Oktober nochmal, wir gehen irgendwann los und pflanzen Wald.
Ja, hier in Berlin in der Nähe. Unseren eigenen Wald, Brandenburg.
Da machen wir mal richtiges Stop the Greenwashing. So. Wir machen machen mal so ein Video, das wird auch richtig gut ankommen, können wir gut im Premium Plus auch benutzen. Und auch mal als Hinweis, weil ich habe ja gesagt, alles, was ihr macht, müsst ihr jetzt in Videoform machen. So kein Mensch hat mehr Lust zu lesen. Die wenigsten Leute haben noch Lust, wirklich ewig zu scrollen und sich 10.000 Bilder hintereinander anzugucken. Und das, was so vor 2-3 Jahren alle angefangen haben, so komm, wir machen jetzt mal so eine NGO-Partnerschaft, müsst ihr jetzt ausweiten und müsst ein Video von machen. Also ihr müsst irgendwie selbst am besten aktiv werden. Ich habe auch neulich gesehen, hier bei Wahoo waren die so in Bali am Strand und haben da sozusagen so Plastik eingepackt und im Hintergrund waren die ganze Zeit so am mit diesem Board so am Tricks
Ja.
machen. Fand ich auch ziemlich nice.
Ja.
Das ist natürlich dann halt legiter, ne? Also das ist halt, schenkt noch mehr Trust. Ist auch ein ganz cooles Projekt. Kann man auch realisieren. Wir machen das zusammen mit Plant My Tree. Das ist eine coole Company, sind hier in Deutschland. Also
das ist auch wichtig irgendwie, ne? Dass du halt irgendwie so eine Partnerschaft hast, wo du halt weißt, hey, hier passiert vielleicht sogar lokal was. So, und nicht irgendwo in Timbuktu, wo mal ein Baum gepflanzt wird, der nach 2 Monaten wieder angeht. So.
Ich habe mal gesehen, so dieses 1 Euro ein Baum oder so, oder 50 Cent ein Baum, das ist in Afrika. Das ist wirklich einfach so, es ist so Money Farming. Also die haben wirklich einen Blumentopf neben dem anderen und dann drücken die einfach so bum, 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 bum.
Und sterben wieder alle.
95% mindestens, würde ich sagen. Ist kompletter Nonsens. Größtenteils leider. Naja. Aber ich glaube, es ist immer besser, wenn man eigentlich lokal was macht, weil das ist natürlich immer einfacher, irgendwo an die andere Seite der Welt zu zeigen und zu sagen, pflanzt man ein paar Bäume so. Aber um ganz ehrlich zu sein, bei uns ist auch gar nicht der Aspekt so eigentlich umwelttechnisch, sondern bei uns ist eher so der Aspekt mit Radfahrer und sowas auch, wenn wir in die Richtung denken, dass wir halt Wald damit halt so eine Connection hat, ne? Ja. Also ich glaube, das Klima retten wir damit nicht, aber wir schaffen schöne Möglichkeit, um draußen zu sein.
Exakt.
Alright, ich würde sagen, wir starten und gehen direkt rein in den Podcast. Alright, great. So, our first episode in English today with Raul Chavla. Most of you might know him. I think you're pretty active in some Facebook groups or FBA seller communities. Maybe you want to introduce yourself real quick so we can start and talk about compliance.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me, Nicklas. Very, very excited. It's been a long time we've been discussing about meeting on this podcast. Finally, I'm here. Thank you.
It's been time. So you moved to London recently. So you're in Europe now. Before that, have you been in China or where have you been?
Yeah, so I was in China around more than 8 years, and then I moved to London, I think 1 month before. So yeah, quite a big change for me. Yeah.
But you like it or not?
It's nice. It's quite a good change. The good part is I'm closer to Europe because I have lots of e-commerce companies, even other retailers and brands who I serve as a account manager for them. So it's easy to communicate with them, more closely. I can meet them anytime I want. Otherwise, yeah, it's different. China was entirely a different culture. So yeah, that's quite a transition I'm having. Life is a little slower here in London, Shenzhen, where I was, south of China, just next to Hong Kong. Oh, that city was way fast. Everything was quick. You just book everything on your apps, and they deliver within few hours, sometimes even within 1 hour. So things were very quick there. Here it takes time. You have to get to the system, understand everything. So that's kind of a transition I'm dealing with right now. But it's nice. It's nice. I mean, I have been told by a lot of my British friends, like even UK has changed a lot. Like earlier they didn't have Apple Pay or Google Pay. Now they have. So that's easy because I'm used to WeChat Pay with just carrying my phone everywhere. I don't carry cash anywhere. So I'm very used to that kind of, way of working, which is nice to have in UK. That's something very common. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, I think like everything in China, I just imagine it to be so like organized. I think it's used how people thought about Germany somehow. Like everything is super on point and fast and good. I think this is what China has become in the past probably like 10-15 years.
Yeah.
So where are you from originally?
So originally I'm from India. There's a place called Agra where you have the famous Taj Mahal monument, the white monument, if you Germans know about it.
Yeah, of course.
So that's my hometown. And then I grew up in that city. And then I moved to a place called Gurgaon, which is next to Delhi, where I worked 8 years in other QC and certification companies. So I worked there with Bureau Veritas, with UL, some of the famous companies. And After 7 years, 8 years of working there, I moved to China for Kima in 2015.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So then maybe we start straight into the topic. So I think the first time we had contact was about 4 or maybe even 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
5 years
I'm
ago.
not quite sure, but
Yeah.
5 years ago. Okay, yeah, funny. So it's been a long time, and yeah. So back then, I mean, that was one of my first products. I think we were taking care of the compliance back then. What is your experience on new Amazon sellers? Because back then I was pretty new in
Mm,
Amazon.
mm.
What are their concerns about compliance? Because for me it was like a huge, I don't
Yeah.
know, I was super uncertain about almost everything.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And even after these many years, the situation is not very different. The new sellers still struggle with compliance because it's a complex topic with a lot of technical details. So people are not very easily aware, or even if find you can find things in Google, but Google can lead you to many different things, and people still get confused, of course, because the thing with compliance is it's not like logistics, like you measure the cubic centimeters or cubic meters and you book a container for yourself, or it's not like a legal service. You have n number of words and you type in a contract and you pay for it. In our side of services, it's so technical, like every product is unique. The glasses I'm wearing, the headphones I'm using, if I just say headphones,
Yeah,
it could be any kind of headphones. Like it could be noise cancellation headphones, it could be a headphone for children. So the whole process is technical in a way. Every product is unique. It could have a lot of complications. Depends on where you are selling. So that's why you need a technical person to assist you. Okay, especially if it's a new seller, the trouble that they actually face is with the cost. Okay. Now, many times
yeah,
sellers come to me expecting that the cost could be $500,000. Okay. But again, like I said, every product can be unique. So there is never a fixed cost. There is never a fixed cost for a product category or a product type. We always like to see the actual product and then we decide the cost based on the applicable test under that product. So for the
uh,
new sellers, what I always suggest is they should choose products which are simple. When I say simple, it's not just having an electronic or non-electronic product, but also having a product which lesser materials, which is probably for adults use, not children. It could be something which is, you know, less colors, okay, less a simpler design. So I'll give you an example, and that
yeah,
then you will understand more. Like, let's say I have a bottle in my hand, okay. Now I just said bottle. Okay. Now I'll tell you how the complication levels up. So if I just say bottle, it could be any bottle. It could be a small tiny bottle to put it as a showpiece, as a figurine in your living room. It could be bottle
yeah,
for drink for putting water in your car, right? You have a simple bottle like that. You can have a drinking water bottle like this one is. Okay. When I say drinking water bottle, it falls into the category of food contact materials. Okay. And let's say this was a water bottle for children. So it comes into the category of children's items. So based on different uses, the the applicability of test and regulations changes. Okay. If it was simple water
yeah.
bottle,
And then it could
this would
even
be
be like
cost
out of
resistant.
glass or different
Yes.
kind of plastics, right?
Yeah. So
So
if it
different
was glass,
materials.
it was steel, it was plastic, what kind of plastic? And let's say like this one, you have a blue cap. Okay. Now this is another thing what happens quite often. We always ask for pictures of the product, but now someone will send me the bottle picture and it will show only me the blue cap. Now most likely the blue cap underneath it might also have a rubber stopper just to make sure that the water doesn't fall off. So that's another material. So we need to know exact list of materials it's made of. So so that's why we say less materials, simple design, less colors, because every color also is a different material. If you add blue, green, purple, yellow, XYZ different colors, every color has to be
Yeah.
tested for the chemicals in the coloring. Okay. Um, if it's for children, of course, children are children, so we have to keep them even safer. So there are certain extra regulations for children. So the key question from the new sellers about the cost is something they are not able to gather from the internet. It's not possible. I've been asked by Amazon itself also, by the way, because I'm their global account manager. Even they asked
Yeah.
like, hey, can you give us the cost for every product category? I said it makes no sense. Yeah, if I say 200, it can even go to 2000. You make it, you put different cartoon characters on it,
Yeah.
you put 10 materials, the cost goes up. I can't help it.
Do you believe maybe in the near future it will be possible to at least get the information what kind of certifications you need with AI? Somehow that AI figures out, okay, these are the basic rules, and now we tell you what probably or what might is inside of the product, and then we can tell you, okay, you're probably going to need that, and this.
So, in my opinion, AI is just a simplification of Google search. You know, in Google search, you have thousand different results when you search for something. In AI, you get specific result, maybe from 1,000 to 10, and in a very nicely written manner. But okay, it will just tell you, okay, for glass you need this, for steel you need this, but sometimes you need multiple tests. So let's say for lead, okay, if you have three metal items, you have to test lead three times. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
So
something
you need to
AI will
give
not tell you.
exact information.
Yeah, but
Pretty
the
cool.
good part is
Okay,
like
so what
in our
is
labs, we give the whole quotation with number of tests, everything what is needed within few hours. So that's something
it's
we can
quite
help
quick,
with.
so it's not necessarily needed to get AI involved. But
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this because I personally believe it probably is going to make it a lot simpler, just for maybe also for you to know, okay, these products will need this. But for now, it's not working, so it doesn't matter anyways. But let's say I'm a new seller, or I'm a seller in general, and I want to launch a new product. What is the step-by-step plan? How do I or what do I do to make sure that in the end I am compliant and still don't spend too much money on tests, right? So don't do stuff that I think, okay, it's not necessarily needed. What would you recommend?
So I would even take a step, before that. I strongly suggest every single seller, new, experienced, any level of seller, big seller, small seller, is to ask for quotation for lab tests and certificates at the product research stage. Now, why I say this? Because
Yeah.
let's say, because product research is the time when you're calculating your profit and margins for that product. Okay. So let's say you go on any product research tool and you do your profit calculation. It will show you, let's say, $1,000 on 500 pieces, just an example. Okay. But you did not put that the mandatory cost of certification and lab testing. So your profit is actually wrong. And like I said, the cost of testing and certification can be anything. It could be even $2,000. So let's say if it goes to $2,000, you're actually falling into $1,000 loss, not profit. So you should be actually dropping that product altogether or making some change to make it profitable. Okay. So the biggest key suggestion would be ask for lab testing certification cost at the product research stage. Don't wait for when the PO has been done to the
So to make,
factory.
yeah, of course, so to make sure whether it's going to
Yeah,
be worth it.
yeah.
So I think what's really important here also is I think as a more experienced seller, you somehow get to use at least a little bit, so you can tell, all right, this is going to be super expensive, and this is probably just, I mean, there's also tests, it's just maybe $500 or something, or maybe it's like $2,500, or maybe probably if you have an electric product that is used with small children and also
Yeah.
under the water or whatever, it might be like 20,000 or even more,
Yeah.
I don't know. Um,
The benefit,
so the
the,
first
the
step,
yeah, the benefit with the experienced seller is they might have many different products, so they can balance out the cost. Even if they might make loss in one, they can make a profit in the other, and then they can scale up with more
yeah.
volumes as they sell on. But for the smaller sellers, it becomes even more important to do it this way. Ask us for quotations, early on, not wait for the PO to be sent to the factory. The bigger sellers,
All
they
right.
have
So,
10,
but
15 products. Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't matter. But to get back to the step by step. So first of all, for example, I would contact straight like Kima, for example, or just for our listeners here, we created a form which is easy to give in all the informations Kima needs to give you a quotation. So if you want to use it, just let me know and give me an Instagram message or something. And for our customers and clients in the coaching, you have an own video for that, how to use it and how to get fast quotations. But is this, would you say this is the best way to go straight to a lab like Kima, or would you recommend to go to somehow? I mean, for example, in Germany, there's some companies they don't test, but they tell you what kind of test you need. But I used some of them, and most likely I was like, okay, in the end, I know less than what I know before, and it just costs money. And you have a list with thousands of tests that probably you just need 5 or 6 out of them.
Yeah.
So, what is your
Yeah.
opinion on that?
Yeah, so actually, we do the same. We have our experts sitting in Germany, Hong Kong, China, India, France, US. So we have labs all of these places. In Germany, we have a lab in Hamburg, where also we have experts who know what exactly the tests have to be done. So we actually do the same thing without charging you anything. The quotations are for free. You don't have to pay for any quotations. We charge you only once we start the test for you when you send the sample. So going back to the
Yeah.
process, product research stage, ask for quotations, ask for as many quotations as you want. Once a quotation fits in your budget with the profit calculator, then you go ahead with the product, give the PO to the supplier. Okay. At that point of time, once the supplier, the factory starts producing, at the very beginning of the production, ask them to send us the number of pieces, which we have told you actually in the quotation earlier, how many pieces we need for the testing. Send those pieces to us. We start testing within 5, 7, or whatever number of days we have committed to you. You get the report in your hands. It's that easy.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so one question on the amount of different tests or the entire cost. I mean, sometimes you test a product, for example, or you ask for a quotation, and then you get a list of tests that are required. And especially in the compliance thing, as you mentioned in the beginning, it's not black and white, and a lot of things are somehow like, okay, you should do it, but maybe it's not 100% needed. So how do you figure out as a seller, because obviously out of your position, it makes sense and nothing wrong about it, I think, to tell, okay, this test, it might not be 100% needed, but I think it makes sense to test it, but it's maybe an additional $400. So as a seller, how do I know what tests are really required so that I, especially for the beginning or in the beginning, you want to save as much money as you can on the compliance. So what would you recommend to do? Maybe get another quotation from a different company, or um, is there any way, or do you say, okay, let's always just go with the first quotation, or how
So in the
would you go
cases
on that?
of quotations from us, you will have only the mandatory test included. You won't have anything that is not mandatory.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
Okay,
have
that makes it
this.
simple.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we made this system
So
within our own
this is
company.
really
Anything from
important.
e-commerce, anything from that comes from e-commerce sellers, we
Yeah.
give only mandatory. We don't give anything else.
All right. This is really interesting because I personally believe I always made the experience that it's way easier to go with a lab like Kima and ask quotation and get the list from the mandatory list than buying any additional company to tell you what tests are needed. The only disadvantage might be if the supplier already has some certifications. How often do you think is there actually the point that the supplier has the certification for the country? Like in our case, it's most likely Germany, but already has the certification for Germany for this
Okay.
specific product.
You touched upon a very sensitive topic, and I'm glad you brought this up. It's common that the suppliers can give you a certificate or a lab test report, but we don't suggest. There are different reasons for it. Oh, by the way, just to mention, it's very common, I know, in Germany to use the word certificate, but these are not called certificate in the terms of compliance. We call them lab testing reports. Okay, just to make it clear. Okay, certificate is a GS
Yeah.
certificate or something like that. So coming to the point of suppliers, we don't suggest for several reasons. We have seen these lab test reports which could be fake. The suppliers could be changing the date in the PDF. It could be very old. Okay. Maybe it's not exactly the same product. It's quite possible. Um,
Okay, yeah, so it's a slightly different product, yeah.
it could be slightly different, and it can also happen like they might give you a pass report, but it could have been failed. We came across some sellers who gave a report. They removed the failed page of the report, and they gave you the first three pages which had the pass test only. I mean, you as a seller, you might
Yeah,
not
okay.
understand the authenticity of the report if the PDF is edited or not. Okay. The same way, we always suggest that the test should be done on your own production, while suppliers, what they do is they might do the test on the samples that are in their showroom. Now, why I say on
Ah,
your own
yes,
production,
okay.
because your production is going to come to the FBA warehouse in Germany, which you are responsible for, not the products which are in their showroom. Okay. So, having said that, you should get the samples from your own production picked up and getting tested. That's a true representative of the samples, you know?
That's a really good point because I think that might cause a lot of failed tests. Because I also made the experience that just say you bring up a new product and you take care of all the testing, and then somehow one of the testing fails, which is kind of, you spent the money and you wish, okay, everything passes. What do you think? How can you avoid this happening?
So, to avoid failures, the golden rule is when you put the supplier contract, mention it there that for any retesting, they are going to be responsible for the cost. The same thing works for QC also. We
Okay.
do a lot of QC in more than 100 countries for many different brands, and they do every time. The first inspection is paid by the client, and the reinspection is paid by the supplier. That's when they are serious. They don't want to fail, of course, because they don't want to pay for the second one.
Okay, that's good. So this is a good point. So you put it in the contract with the supplier. At which point do you actually start the testing? So you said already in the product making, you should get the quotation, how much it
Yeah.
roughly is going to be,
So
and then
product research
do
stage.
you place the order or?
So product research stage is where you ask us for quotations so that you can finally decide the profit. And the test should be done at the very beginning of the production, let's say under 5% production stage. That's when the samples should be picked up from your production specifically. and those samples should be sent to us. Don't wait for the samples to be ready like 70, 60, even 100%. Like, hey, let my shipment get produced first, then I will ask for lab testing. No, no, no. That's very late. If things fail at that time, the supplier will not replace because it's a cost to them as well. They won't like it. So do it as early as possible.
All right, so early as possible, but so you place the order without knowing that it's going to pass, and just say, for example, I mean, how long is a test
5 to 7
usually
days.
doing? I
Five.
mean, if the supplier is in China, we're probably going to send it to a Kima lab in China, right? So
Yes.
it's going to be tested within China. Yeah.
Yeah. So typically it takes about under a week to complete everything. It's a good point. Yes. If it fails, what do you do? So uh, some brands, I wouldn't say e-commerce companies, but bigger retailers and brands, they test even earlier. So they test raw materials also, besides the finished product. So they do the
Okay.
testing twice. I mean, not, I won't call it twice, but in 2 stages. The raw material testing is probably going to cost a little lesser than finished product. But having said so, it doesn't mean they don't, test the finished product. Why? Because it's a matter of chemicals. Chemical one come in contact with chemical two, some new chemical, is coming out of it.
Yeah.
Let's say you have a
All right.
pair of shoes. You put metal buckles on the leather shoe, and metal plus leather, something new happens. Okay, so they test the leather, they test the metal, but they also test the shoe. So making sure that the leather doesn't have the wrong chemicals, the metal doesn't have the chemicals, and when they combine together, nothing wrong comes out of them.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, if it should fail, and this is what I've experienced, a lot of sellers are doing. If you're not in a kind of risky product category, let's say, for example, you don't sell stuff that gets in contact with food, and no electrics and no things for babies, or food itself. Let's say, what is an example? Let's say you sell a chair, like a wooden chair, right? And some metal stuff on the chair has a little bit too much of a specific metal. So I saw a lot of sellers just saying, okay, well, then I'm going to sell it anyways, because it's probably not going to be such a big of a problem. There's probably not going to be any harm to humans or kids or whatever, because the product itself, it's not a risky product. I mean, I can understand, out of the view of a lab, you probably recommend, okay, you should test it again, obviously, and fix the problem. But I think as a seller, when you sell a safe product, you can go with it maybe for the first or the second order. But then what I recommend, especially today, is that the compliance, you should really take care of the compliance, because there are more and more restrictions, and Amazon is asking more and more sellers for certification or for compliance things, and so on and so on.
Yeah. I actually have an advice on that, and
I
let me
don't know
step.
if you have a
Yeah.
view on that, or if you can
Yeah.
publicly talk
I,
about it.
I can actually take a step back and tell why all the testing happens. So the testing is not just for humans to be safe, but it's also for the environment to be safe, which eventually is for humans.
Yeah.
So, like for REACH, it came in because there are a lot of harmful chemicals coming into the environment across European Union. So, the European Chemical Agency, ECHA, they came up with REACH to reduce those chemicals in the environment, and those chemicals come in any form. It could be in the form of a chair or the t-shirt or the headphones or the glasses or toy or anything. So it
Yeah.
does not matter whether the product is a high risk item or not, but even then they have to be tested. So coming to the recalls and the potential repercussions that could happen from not testing it or not having a product which is passed is one, of course, eventually it destroys our environment, which can harm our future generations. The second part is
Yeah.
now is you potentially can have a lawsuit. Forget Amazon. Yeah, they can always come after you at any time. They pick up sellers randomly, they pick up ASINs randomly. But even out of Amazon, there are people, there are bodies who can question you. The regulatory bodies, the NGOs, even a general consumer in Europe, REACH is a very strong regulation. It really protects the
Yeah.
consumers. So anybody can come up like, hey, and they can test themselves also. Don't think that they cannot. Anybody can pick up that share, get it tested in one of the labs, and take a report and say, hey, look, this chair was failing, and this is still being sold. This is the brand. So your brand name goes for a very bad image. You have a very bad news. You potentially can have a lawyer coming after you. Amazon will definitely suspend the listing. There are a lot of problems that could arise,
Yeah.
you know. So I
Which
certainly
is, by the
don't.
way, interesting. Yeah, because as a seller that takes care about all of the compliance things, you might even be interested in looking after your competition, because I personally believe that there are still like 40-50% that don't take care about the
Oh
compliance
yeah,
stuff at all. I mean,
yeah,
they put their names and lists on the packaging, but they don't really take care of the compliance certifications and so on.
that is
Especially
so
Reach.
true.
I think
Yeah.
Reach and LFG. Yeah,
Yeah, you're very true.
LFGB.
LFGP is more for food contact material, and you're so true. There are many Amazon sellers who don't even take care of this. They're just selling. There, some of them are even drop shipping because it's cheaper, it's easier. They don't do anything. You won't believe people just put a CE mark on the product without even thinking. Now, coming to CE mark, and this is something I should really touch upon. CE is not a certificate. It is not a
No,
certificate.
it's
People
not. Yeah,
people come to me every day like, hey, can you give me CE certificate? I said, no, it's not a certificate. LFGB certificate. No, LFGB is a regulation. CE is a mark.
yeah,
And now coming to CE, it's not like you can put it if you like. No, it you are either prohibited to put it or you're required to put it by law. If your product falls into the
yes.
category of CE marking, you have to put it. There is no second question. If it doesn't fall into that list, you cannot put it. As simple as that. And you can never say a CE certified product. No, it's wrong. You can just put the
Yeah,
CE
it's just
mark
a
on the
mark, and
product.
to get the
Yeah.
mark, you need some certification.
Yeah, so CE
Okay, yeah.
certificate, sorry, CE mark is the second step after you have got the test done on the product.
Yeah. So when you get all the tests done, all the compliance, then you simply put it yourself on your product. So it's not something you get from somehow an agency or something. They
Yeah,
give you the CE
yeah.
certification. It is no certification. It's just a mark, and you put it on there by
Yes.
yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, this is another good point. I think this is interesting because it's funny. It's like LFGB, or is it LFGBTQ compliant? All
Yeah.
right. So Raoul, thank you very much for all the insights. I think this is really good stuff, especially for all the sellers that have regularly headache with compliance. So if you want to reach out, just let me know. I'm gonna send you the form so you can get straight in contact with Raoul and Kima. And yeah, thank you so much for taking your time for the podcast. And
Thank you.
probably we're gonna meet for the next product from ourselves.
Yeah, soon enough. Thank you so much for having me.